Many of you might be well aware of the Holocaust, the genocide of Jews during World War II. Do you ever know the same kind of atrocities were committed in World War I, against another community? Even though the number of deaths exceeded 1 million, many of the countries don't even recognize that these incidents ever happened. Today, we will dive into a controversial issue. So, let's discuss. In 1299, King Osman, a leader of a Turkish tribe in Anatolia, founded an imperial realm that spanned much of Southeast Europe, West Asia, and North Africa. At some point in time, it also controlled parts of southeastern Central Europe. In Arabic, his name is pronounced as Othman. Because of this empire came to be known as the Ottoman Empire. It is also labeled as the Turkish Empire. It was considered the most powerful and largest empire of its time, that lasted for more than 600 years, from the 14th century to the end of World War I. Officially, it was a Muslim empire, but people from other religions, such as Jews and Christians, were also there. But they were fewer in number. Armenians, who followed Christianity, were also among those minorities present in the area, with their presence documented since the 6th century BCE, approximately 1,500 years before the arrival of the Turks. Within the Ottoman Empire, the millet system was implemented, providing non-Muslims with a subordinate yet protected status in society. Sharia law, which enshrined Islamic superiority, was in place, assuring property rights and freedom of worship to non-Muslims, including Armenians, in return for a special tax. However, they often faced forced labor, unlawful taxation, and crimes such as robbery and murder. Starting in 1839, the Ottoman government initiated a series of reforms aimed at equalizing the status of all its citizens, irrespective of their religion. These reforms met with strong resistance from the Islamic clergy and aristocrats, who were opposed to granting minorities equal rights. As a result, the reforms were never fully implemented. In 1876, Abdul Hamid II, the 34th emperor of the Ottoman Empire, came to power. His regime systematically confiscated Armenian-owned land and granted it to Muslim immigrants, aiming to reduce the Armenian population in the eastern provinces. Consequently, about 300,000 Armenians left the empire and relocated to different areas. Following these events, some Armenians began to revolutionize themselves and joined revolutionary political parties, such as the Armenian Revolutionary Federation, founded in 1890. However, these parties did not completely sever ties with the empire as they sought reforms within the Ottoman Empire. This stance did not resonate with many Armenians living within the empire. The Russo-Turkish War took place in 1878, resulting in a decisive Russian victory over the Ottoman Empire. Subsequently, the Congress of Berlin was convened in the same year, where the Ottoman government agreed to implement reforms and ensure the physical safety of its Armenian subjects. It marked the first international recognition of the Armenian cause. Following this incident, the perception of Armenians within the Ottoman authorities shifted dramatically. Armenians were now seen as a threat to the empire and were labeled as anti-nationalists. To address the unrest, Sultan Abdul Hamid II formed the Hamidai regiments, composed mainly of Sunni Kurdish tribes, along with Turkish, Circassian, and Arab communities. This led to a brutal period known as the Hamidian massacres, targeting Armenians. The estimated death toll ranged from 100,000 to 300,000, leaving 50,000 children orphaned. The intent was to force Armenian emigration and reduce their population. Because of the policies of Abdul Hamid, Turkish people also started hating him. Owing to which, the Young Turks movement emerged among the Turks, aiming to dethrone Abdul Hamid. A key group within this movement was the Committee of Union and Progress, CUP, which faced persecution from Abdul Hamid II for advocating constitutional reforms. After a failed coup in 1896, many members were exiled or arrested. The Armenian Revolutionary Federation, seeking a brighter future, chose to support the CUP. The Young Turk Revolution occurred in 1908, with CUP revolutionaries compelling Sultan Abdul Hamid to reinstate the constitution, convene parliament, and hold elections. This initiated the constitutional era, celebrated by Ottomans of diverse backgrounds, including Armenians. However, the jubilation was short-lived. In 1909, conservatives against the constitutional government attempted a coup. Although unsuccessful, news of the attempt sparked violence in Adana, where armed Turks killed approximately 20,000 to 25,000 people, predominantly Armenians. Despite the lack of state involvement, the perpetrators remained unpunished. Nevertheless, the ARF maintained its faith in the CUP and its reforms. The First Balkan War, which began in October 1912, led to significant territorial losses for the Ottoman Empire in Europe and the expulsion of Muslims from the Balkans. The violence against Balkan Muslims fueled anti-Christian sentiments among Turks, particularly against Armenians, who were seen as a threat to Anatolia's unity. In January 1913, CUP leaders staged another coup, establishing a one-party state with the goal of suppressing all opposition. This resulted in a renewed exodus of Armenians, as their lands were promised to Muslim refugees from the Balkans. The Yanukovych Accord, a reform plan signed on February 8, 1914, aimed to appoint inspector generals to oversee the eastern provinces, home to many Armenians. However, the Ottoman government never implemented these reforms, fearing they might lead to the empire's partition. On October 29, 1914, the empire entered World War I alongside the Central Powers, attacking Russian ports in the Black Sea. While some Ottoman Armenians joined the Russian army, hoping for independence, others feared Ottoman retaliation. The Ottoman government grew suspicious of its Armenian population, leading to the dismissal of Armenian civil servants, the disarming of Armenian soldiers, and their transfer to labor battalions, followed by systematic executions. Enver Pasha, the war minister, led an ill-fated invasion of Russian territory in December 1914, resulting in heavy losses. Retreating forces destroyed Armenian villages, and Enver Pasha blamed Armenians for the defeat. Despite Armenian loyalty to the empire, CUP leaders deemed their elimination necessary. Meanwhile, the ARF urged restraint to prevent further violence. In early 1915, CUP leaders held the entire Armenian population responsible for treason, setting the stage for what Talat Pasha called the definitive solution to the Armenian question, leading to genocide. On June 21, Talat Pasha ordered the deportation of Armenians across the empire, including those far from the conflict zones. The scale of the tragedy was immense, with bodies found floating down the Tigris River, sometimes blocking it and requiring explosives to clear. The government advised hiding evidence of the massacres to avoid post-war accountability. Women and children were forced to march up to 1,000 kilometers across the Syrian desert in extreme heat. Those unable to continue were abandoned or executed. Many Armenian children were taken or sold by their parents, often to save their lives, and faced abuse and exploitation. Despite efforts to prevent media coverage, reports of the atrocities reached Western newspapers. The Triple Entente condemned the Ottoman Empire for crimes against humanity. Germany, an ally of the Ottoman Empire, controversially took no action against the genocide. The mass killings ceased by January 1917, with historians estimating that 600,000 to 1.5 million Armenians perished during the genocide. In May 1918, the First Republic of Armenia was declared, with half its population as refugees and much of its territory still under Ottoman control. After the British Army's victory, Ottoman troops withdrew from Armenia. However, a Turkish blockade led to the deaths of another 200,000 people from starvation and disease. Following World War I, Allied governments began prosecuting those responsible for the Armenian genocide. Grand Vizier Damat Ferit Pasha acknowledged that 800,000 Armenians had died due to state policies. Although 18 officials were sentenced to death, only 3 were executed, as the others had fled. On March 15, 1921, Talat Pasha, the main culprit, was assassinated in Berlin by Soghomon Tehlirian, an Armenian revolutionary.